The studio lights of Good Morning America were warm as always, the air carefully controlled, the set humming with calm professionalism. It was supposed to be a respectful, celebratory interview with Clint Eastwood, an icon of American cinema, there to discuss his latest and potentially final directorial film. Everyone was in place, the audience was eager, and George Stephanopoulos had done dozens of such interviews with stars twice as prickly. But from the moment Eastwood walked onto the set, the mood felt strained. Dressed in a classic earth blazer, his gait was steady, but his expression stone-faced. George greeted him with an outstretched hand and a smile, but Clint only nodded curtly. "Let's just talk straight," he muttered. George chuckled, trying to disarm the tension. But it was clear from Clint's first answer that he wasn't here to play by the usual rules. Asked about what inspired the themes of his new film, Quiet Meditation on Justice, Loss, and Redemption, Clint responded dryly. "Life's ugly, but nobody wants to hear that on morning TV, do they?" The studio laughed nervously, unsure. If it was a joke, George, remaining composed, pivoted slightly, asking about Clint's legacy and influence on new filmmakers. But Clint interrupted with a jab. "Legacy's just a polite word for death. Why don't you ask me something real?" George, trying not to let the comment rattle him, nodded and replied, "Well, let's talk real then. A lot of people have called your latest film politically charged. Do you think your work has become more ideological over the years?" The moment the question landed, Clint's jaw flexed. "What does that mean? Politically charged?" he asked. "I make films about men and consequences that used to be called storytelling." George pressed cautiously. "Some critics feel your films take a strong stance, especially in how justice is served. They've used words like reactionary or old-fashioned." Clint leaned forward, his voice sharp. "Critics are mostly people who've never worked a real job. You ever held a shovel, George? Or do you just hold microphones and opinions?" The audience gave a mix of surprised gasps and stifled laughs. George chuckled lightly, brushing it off. "I understand strong opinions, Clint. I'm a journalist." "No," Clint shot back. "You're a TV personality with cue cards and time limits." The air turned thick. His crew members behind the cameras stiffened. Producers watched the control monitors with wide eyes. This wasn't just tense, it was turning combative. George attempted to steer things toward safer ground, referencing Clint's long collaboration with Warner Brothers. But Eastwood wasn't following the script. "Asterisk, people think I owe them answers," Clint continued, his gravel voice rising slightly. "I make movies, that's my answer. I'm not here to apologize for telling stories the way I see them." George remained poised but firm. "No one's asking you to apologize, Clint, but when your work touches on cultural flashpoints, justice, masculinity, it's fair to ask where you stand." Clint's eyes narrowed. "You want to know where I stand?" He turned toward the camera. "I stand with people who don't get invited on shows like this. People who aren't pretty or polite. People who don't rehearse their pain for claps." George replied calmly. "So you don't see this as an opportunity, but as a performance." "It's all a performance," Clint said. "Except I'm the only one not acting." The room was silent. Kelly Ripa, who had been scheduled to join the next segment, was seen backing out of frame quietly. The producers were now fully focused. On damage control, Clint's tone was defiant, almost daring someone to cut to commercial. George folded his hands, leaning forward. "Then let's be honest, Star. You proud of what your voice has come to represent? Some say you glorify a kind of justice that's outdated." Clint smirked. "Outdated to who? You? The folks drinking almond milk and tweeting about feelings." Asterisk, the confrontation peaked when George attempted one last structured question. "Clint, your earlier films were often praised for nuance. But lately, some feel your storytelling paints the world in black and white. Do you see that as a fair critique?" Clint snapped. "You want nuance? Go write a poem. I make films for grown men who don't need everything softened." The crowd tensed. George responded, still calm but now visibly more direct. "We live in a different time now. Audiences are broader. Stories carry responsibility." Clint replied instantly. "Responsibility is doing your job and not crying about how it makes people feel. That's what's wrong with media now. You people think your feelings are facts." That line hit hard. George sat back, staring at him, choosing his next words carefully. "You've always been a voice of strength and resilience. But maybe there's strength in listening too." Clint stood slowly. I've listened to this long enough. A stunned silence filled the set. I came to talk about a movie, not to be dissected by someone who thinks empathy means letting go of spine. George stood too, now matching his guest in stature. Then perhaps you've said what you came to say. Clint nodded once, eyes blazing. Good. And then he turned and walked off. Asterisk, the camera crew froze for a second. Then, at the producer's frantic cue, they cut to an emergency segment to travel blogger, ready with cheerful tips for summer destinations. The tension in the air hadn't lifted, though. George remained seated, collected but clearly rattled. He turned to the camera and, without any script, said, "That was Clint Eastwood, everyone. A legend who speaks his truth his way." The audience applauded uncertainly. Online, the clip exploded. Within an hour, social media was saturated with takes, GIFs, memes, and arguments. Some users hailed Clint as a symbol of unfiltered masculinity, a hero who wouldn't be tamed by woke television. Others accused him of arrogance, toxic defensiveness, and bullying a professional interviewer. Hashtags like #Eastwood on GMA and #GeorgeV's Clint trended worldwide. Within 2 hours, the show issued an official statement. GMA values honest discourse, but stands firmly for respectful dialogue. While we appreciated Mr. Eastwood's time, the tone of the segment was not reflective of our values. Clint's publicist, meanwhile, released a terse statement. Mr. Eastwood speaks for himself, as always. Reporters scrambled to contact people who'd worked with him recently. Some supported his outburst as pure Clint. Others admitted he'd become increasingly impatient with Hollywood's changing tides. Media analysts, Ni Clint or George K. Moment KO, Breakdown Karna, Continue Raka Leakin, Ab Focus Shift, Horaha Eastwood, K Narrative Control, Pei, Ek, Yale Media Professor Ni Ek Panel, Discussion Main Kaha, Clint Eastwood didn't lose control on GMA. He seized it. Ya Line Tarrant, Viral Ho Gay. Twitter or YouTube Shorts main clips, Gumrehi, the Jahan Clint Kawakoff, KO, Slow Motion Main Dakaya Gaya, Tha with orchestral Western music and background. Kuchni Eyes Performance Art Kaha, Duser Ni Isperdout, Uthaya Ki, Ya Sab Preplanned, Stunt Tha Film Key Marketing Ki Lai, Par Eastwood Ni Kabi, Kuch Clarify Nahi Kia, Nahan, Nana, or I See Silence Ni, or Curiosity Create Key. Meanwhile, George Ek new segment host Karn Lage, Conversations That Count, Jahan Wo, Polarizing Guests, K.O. Bulakar, Neutral or Respectful Dialogue, Promote Cart. Yeah, Ek Direct Response, Tha, Us Fallout Cup, Par Jabbi Koi, Intense Moment, Hota, Audience Kuek Part, Silently GMA KUS, Gatna Koyad, Clinta George, Kanam, Abba Ek, Dust Rasay, Hamisha Judah Ho, Chuka Tha, Chehi Wodono, Kuda Storbog, Rehi Ho, Hollywood Keandre B. Isis, Incident Knee Deep Impact, Create Kia, PR Teams Niapni Clients Kilai Eastwood Clause, Banana Shuru, Cardia Pre-Interview Agreement. Jahan Kisibi Surprise Question Ya, Ideological Probing KO, Prevent Kia Ja Saki, Kuch Actors Nia Clause KO, Mandatory Banadia K, Unkajab, Acting Karnahai, Confessional Journalism, Kahisa Bananahi, Iska Ek Impact Yabihua K, Interviews Yadestero or Guarded Honlage, shows mainspontaneity.com, Honlagi. Par Dustri Taraf, Kuch Creators Ni is Movement KO Celebrate. Kia. Independent filmmakers or podcasters Ni Unfiltered Eastwood-style interviews. Shurukira. Unedited, unpredictable. Ironically, Jahan mainstream-controlled interviews, Banain, Laga, Wahan, Underground Media Ni, Unpredictability KO Embrace Kia. George Stephanopoulos KO Ek Award, B Milla Same Soul K End Main. Excellence in Broadcast Integrity, Par Jabas, Award KA Video La Comments, Main Log Surf EK, Botlik Rehi V. Still can't believe he tried that with Clint. Okay. Jab, Clint Eastwood, Key Death Key, Bod Ek Legacy Documentary, Benai Guy, The Last Cowboy. Clint Eastwood's final frame to Usmine GMA incident, QA Ek. Full segment, dedicate Kia Archival footage, slowed down reactions, audience Kia gasps, or post-walkout silent sab include Kia Gopea, George Stephanopoulos B. is documentary main ek final message. Detain, what happened that day wasn't a feud. It was a moment of unfiltered humanity. Fans, critics, or industry sab, Monty Hain, K. Woe moment, EK irreversible, shift, though not just for TV. But